Hello, welcome to Brew from the Bothy number 19. My name is Fay and this is my podcast where I'm with you for about maybe half an hour, maybe a little bit more, and I talk all things crochet, knitting and yarn. I'm a crochet knitwear designer based in Cheshire in England, and I am fully yarn obsessed. I live, eat, breathe all things yarn. Even better if it's wool or a natural fibre. That's my happy place. So thank you for coming and joining with me. Is that right? Coming and joining me for podcast number 19. Come on in. I've got a lot to show you and a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with what I am wearing. So this is the Ducky Fuzz tank top. The design is by Rosina at Zines and Roger. I'll pop a link below for it. And I've done it in Drops alpaca, brushed alpaca, which comes in 25 gram balls. I've just weighed this and I used 108 grams, which is just nothing. So although it's very light on the amount of yarn used, it's actually really lovely and warm. Today's the first day I've worn it. I've kept it like podcast pristine, ready for you, and my core is so nice and warm. It's not particularly chilly day, but it's not warm either, and this is absolutely doing the job for me. When I bought this yarn, it was on sale at Wool Warehouse and it was £2.80 for a 25 gram ball, which means that this top has cost me just in yarn £14, which is a proper bargain, I think. I made a size 3 and I didn't get gauge, which is why I made a size 3. I'm not naturally a size 3, and it meant that I was able to go down some sizes, and it fits really nicely. Like I like it. I like it a lot. It's not too tight, it's not too loose, it's not drowning me, and I completely stuck to the pattern for a size 3, other than I added 2 extra rows. You work from the bottom up in panels, so I put in 2 extra rows here, and because this yarn is so fluffy, I don't know if you can see just how fluffy it is, the idea of doing a crocheted rib in this yarn was not filling me with glee, so I've actually knitted a 1x1 rib around the collar, around the armholes, and also down on the waist hem as well. It was really quick and easy to do the 1x1 knitted rib. If that's something that you've never done before and you want some more details on it, I'll link you to a blog post that I've got on that with a video tutorial down below, just because sometimes the yarn means that knitting a rib would be easier than crocheting a rib. Sometimes the amount of ribbing would mean that knitting a rib would be easier than crocheting a rib. There are crochet ribs out there, like the one that Rosina puts in the pattern, that are really good, that are fit for purpose, that do that stretch thing, that look like a rib, that are fantastic. But I would say that knitting rib is always easier. It just is what it is. I love crochet. You know that I will always fly the flag for crochet, but knitted rib is easier than doing a crochet rib. Always. But it's not for everyone, so the crocheted rib wouldn't have looked that different from this, but like I say, just this yarn would have made it not something that I wanted to do. So this is my finished object over the last fortnight. Now, the keen-eyed amongst you might have noticed that I'm kind of higher up. I'm actually standing up today. I have a sit-stand desk that I work from every day, and I thought I'll change it up a little bit and stand up for once. I'm trying to get as much daylight in as possible because it's really quite gloomy out there, and I thought if I stand up then I might be able to show things off better. I don't know if it's working or not, but hopefully. So that was what I'm wearing and what is off my hook. Next, I'd love to tell you what is coming onto my hook, because I printed the pattern off today ready. I thought I was going to get to swatching this over the weekend, but I had to clean the house instead. Really dull. I had to clean the house and I had lots of cooking and stuff to do. So I have just printed off the pattern and I showed this off a few weeks ago. Next on my list is the Coast Sweater by Jennifer at Air Crochet. She is a Danish designer, phenomenal, like absolutely amazing crochet designer. I'm not sure how much crochet stuff she's doing at the moment, but she's just got an eye for it. She's got that very pared back kind of Scandi take on it. Let's show you a couple of close-ups of the pattern. It just looks amazing. Now, this version that she's done and the other projects that I could find have all been done in ALOE, the plates, the ALOE plates. Even 6 months ago, I would have gone straight to that yarn and said, great, that's what I will make my jumper from. But because my skin sensitivity is now so far up on the scale, I know that if I make it in that yarn, it won't work for me. It'll be itchy and I'll end up making a jumper that I won't want to wear. So I'm going to try swatching it with Wool Revival, which is by West Yorkshire Spinners. I've talked about this yarn before. I couldn't have knitted socks on my feet that I did in this yarn, and my feet are so nice and toasty. And it's wearing really well because it is 100% recycled, 80% recycled British wool, 20% nylon. And the British recycled wool bit is part of the wastage in their factory process. So it's not like it's worn wool that has then come back through shorting. It's actual, just through the manufacturing process, wastage. So I know it would make a really warm, really hard wearing jumper. The meterage is slightly different though, so I would have to do some mucking about with numbers, but I don't mind doing that. So this is coming in at 225 meters, 100 grams, and I think the ALOE is 300 meters per 100 grams. So I need to make sure I've swatched well to get this. It might be that I could hold some floof with it, but that wasn't really what I wanted to do with this jumper. Although the ALOE does look quite fibrous, and I know it is quite fibrous when you work on it, but I wanted, there's some really lovely detail coming down here on the front panel, and I wanted to try and get that really clear and crisp. So that's what I'm thinking, maybe not with floof. And I also don't want to add floof to everything because I'd have to go and buy more yarn, which I have plenty and I'd quite like to use this up. The colour is just like a chestnutty rusty brown. Can you tell it's autumn and I'm just obsessed with all the autumnal colours? So I'm going to get swatching with that in the next couple of days because I don't have a fun personal crochet project on the go, and this is next up to come onto my hooks. Quite excited about it. 2 weeks ago when I podcasted, I said I was done for commissions for this year and everything I was working on was for next year. And then I think about 3 hours after I'd recorded, I got asked whether I could do a garment commission for the end of the year. So now I'm on another garment crochet commission, which I didn't expect to be on, but I really want to be able to help them out, and I love the concept that I've come up with, so I'm under a little bit of pressure. So this one is going to be a low and slow crochet project because I've got to get this garment out and done, and I've got 6 weeks to do it, which isn't that long for a crochet garment that's going to be graded across at least 9 sizes. So, oh, I do love pressure. So that is what is coming on my hooks. I'll pop the link for that jumper in case you want to make one or have a look at it down below. Now what I would say is it's a Ravelry link. I called her Jennifer, I don't mean Jennifer, it's Jeanette. Jeanette, I can't get into her websites, but you can get all of this stuff from Ravelry. I'm sorry, there is no other link other than the Ravelry one that I can point you to, so just so you're aware about that. Right, quick slurp. Next up is on my needles. And I wanted to also show you the bag that my knitting is in, because we're coming to the time when we're looking for presents for crafty people and maybe things that are a little bit unusual. And I wanted to show you this barn owl. Now this was part of a kit by a company called Craft Pod. They're a UK based company. I've talked about them before on the old podcast, and this was one of their winter ones from I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And instead of putting it into the hoop, which is how they sell the kits, I thought I would try my hand at some English paper piecing and make it into a bag. So it's got a kind of modified, kind of stylised sunset, sunrise on one side, and then I used the owl on the other side, and I absolutely love it. I love using this bag. But another thing that comes with the kit is this little scissor case, and it comes with the scissors as well. I think you can choose the option to not have it with the scissors, but it's this little owl scissor holder for your needles as well. It was such a joy to make these. So if you are looking for a really nice present for a crafty friend who's a bit special, then I'm going to link you to this, because I really loved making this little scissor holder and the bag. Like I say, you'll get it for a hoop if you want to just put it into the hoop. I wanted to develop it into a project bag. But if you're looking for something that's a bit special, that's by an independent company rather than, like, let's say, a toiletry set from Boots, and you want something that's a little more niche, then drop down. They've got loads of other crafting kits that they send out, and they come through the post in a little box, and it's just a really neat company. But the owl in particular is a really special one, and I know that they've got the kits on the website at the moment. They do sell out quite frequently, so if they're not there when you go and have a look, then keep on going back, because they're constantly restocking that kit in particular. But inside my barn owl bag is my jumper that I've been working on, which is my colourwork jumper. So this is the one that is it's called Rihi by Ronya Hacaletto, and it is in a book specifically. And I've finished with all of the colour work. Oh, I do love those colours. And I finished one sleeve. I just need to bind it off, but I'm going to do an Italian Sombino doff for my 1x1 rib. So one sleeve done, colour work yoke done. I've done a decent amount of the body, and last night I picked up the stitches for the second sleeve and started going with that. And I'm just going to keep on trying to thunder through this project. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm now at that point almost, once I've done the decreases on the sleeves and I get back to the body, then it's just a case of getting it to the length that I want it to be at. But I really like how the colours have worked up. It's probably coming across as a little more washed out on the screen, with the green and the grey, the light grey, with not a lot of contrast showing, but there is actually quite a bit of contrast. I think that is just winter daylight affecting that. But the green is a little bit more limey. It's called avocado. So in terms of yarn usage, I used, I think, only about half a ball of the light grey and almost an entirely full ball of the green. And I don't know where I'm at yet on the Raven. Probably, I think I used, so I started a new ball when I started the sleeve. I maybe used about 1.5 balls, and they're 50-gram balls, by the way, on the sleeve. So it's not using up that much yarn, I'm pleased to say. And I'm going to make this quite a long jumper, and I wanted to show you a top tip that I've got. This, which you see the state of it. I mean, literally, it's the most holy jumper. I can actually fit my hand through the underarm hole in one of them. But this has been a very well loved jumper. I bought it second hand. It's pure wool, and I really like the length of it and the width of it. It kind of just skims off my hips, and I love the sleeve length of it as well. So even though this is long since been relegated out of my allowed to wear outside pile, and then it gets moved into the gardening pile, and then when it's too bad for gardening, it's the painting jumper, which is why it's got splashes and all sorts over it. But I really love the fit of this so much that that's what I'm styling my size and my length and my sleeve length on for this other jumper. So taking into account what it's going to do when it's blocked, I'm trying to get it specifically to this length and also mimic the amount of ribbing that I had on the cuff, and I'll try and mimic the amount of ribbing that I had on the bottom of the jumper, because I really like the proportions of it when it was being worn. So my very woolly painting jumper is still being used, and I'm using it to size up for this one. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was that, this is some of the information that I got from my swatch for this jumper. I was checking out yarn dominance with this, and also what often happens is that I used the same needle size for the colour work and for the non-colour work area. And can you see that the non-colour work bit is just coming out a little bit more? So what that told me from the swatch was that I needed to go up a 0.5mm needle size on the colour work part of it, and then stick to whatever I was using for my favourite gauge for the bottom part of it. So what that means for the actual jumper is, as you would normally do with knitwear, the ribbing I've done in a 4mm needle, the colour work I've done in a 5mm, and then all of the plain stockinette I'm doing in a 4.5mm needle. The little bits in between where I've got some plain stockinette stitches, I have not changed to back down to the 4.5mm needle. I did all of the colour work and just kept it at the 5, and I think it's totally fine with that. I can't see any issues with it. There wasn't enough of it to make me want to change the needles over, and I couldn't see any issues when I'd done it the first time round. But I know if I'd have kept to the same size coming off of the rest of the colour work, then I would have had this same effect happening. So that's why I've changed right the way through. So 4 to 5 to the colour work, to 4.5 for the plain stockinette. I have another jumper that I had worked on, and I definitely had issues with gauge when it came to the colour work part of it. It just became a lot tighter, and I didn't see it when I was working on it, and it was only when I got to the point of a finished object that I could see that it was a problem. So I didn't want to face that with this, because there's a lot of knitting involved in this, so I knew that I would need to change that to get a really workable jumper for me. So that's what I did. What else did I want to tell you? Yarn dominance wise for this, what I've done is kept this main colour, this raven colour, as my background colour. The green is my ultimate dominant colour, and there are some rows where I have got all 3 colours in there, and so what I've done that is green is my dominant colour, the light grey is in the middle, and the raven dark grey brownie colour is my least dominant colour. And what that means when I was doing the colour work is that the green was always coming from underneath the 2 other colours, and that's what gives it the stitch more prominence, and the light grey was only coming underneath the dark grey, and the dark grey was always coming from the top and from the right hand side, because I'm a right-handed knitter. And I made sure that I kept that dominance right the way through the pattern, because I really wanted that green to focus out and for the lighter grey to just kind of sit somewhere in between. And I'm pleased I did. I would be interested to do this again, almost in the same colours, and change the dominance over and see what happens if I made this dark colour the dominant one, so that the colour work stepped back a little bit, but actually I really like it, and I don't know if you can, let me hold this up a little more closely. I don't know if you can see from there how the dominance, it really is working. I think it's probably most prominent down in these jaggy bits at the very bottom. I really like this Drops Soft Tweed. I can't tell you yet how it's going to wear, because this is the first time I've knitted with it. It's warm, I know that for sure, because obviously this is sat on my lap. It's warm and it's really nice to work with. It almost has, it's like the structure of the yarn isn't this at all, but it almost has like a chenille feel to it, but a nice chenille, not a plasticky chenille. Do you remember when chenille tops were all the rage in the 90s, like late 90s? It feels like that nice chenille, not the really plastically horrible squeaky chenille that you get these days. It's just got a lovely, soft, almost velvety texture to it. It's lovely to work with. I will use this again, and I really like the slight tweed effect that you've got in it. It's not a really prominent tweed, but it's just enough. Yeah, I will use this again quite happily. So that is Drops Soft Tweed. Again, I'll pop all of the links below for the different colours I've used in case you are interested. And when I finish the whole project, I will cost it up and tell you how much this was. I'm going to make it really quite long, so mine will probably be more expensive than maybe other people would make it, but happy with that. Really happy with that. So there has been some yarn that has entered the house, like non-design yarn, just saw it, wanted it, got it. I happened to be on Vinted when some yarn came up, and it was really nice yarn at a ridiculous price. The seller had a bundle deal on, and she had lots of little different skeins, but some of them were really good quality, and so I wanted to share them with you. I managed to get 2 skeins of Garthenor Snowdonia sock yarn, which are, let's see if we can get the colours for you. This one is Glaslyn. No idea if I'm pronouncing that properly or not. And this kind of mossy green with little blips of yellow in it is, where are you? Derwent. I really like Snowdonia sock yarn. It's got a bit of bite, a bit of crunch to it, but it's nice and warm. I did a knitted sock design using Snowdonia. It was in Lina 52 Weeks of Socks Volume 2. So this could very easily be another pair of those ALOE socks. I'll pop a link to the socks down below in case you're interested. I might pop a photo here as well. But it needs 2 contrast colours, so I picked these up thinking that this might be the job. I clearly have a thing about this green at the moment. I hadn't really realised that, but yeah. So I got those 2, and then I also found she had this very autumnal, there's a theme, this very autumnal sock yarn, which was a pigment and ply yarn. This was on for £5. I could not press the sold button quickly enough on this sale, and it was when Vinted glitched and I ran downstairs to my computer to come and buy all this stuff. So this and the Snowdonia, and then she also had Woolen Twine Fibre Studio, this skein. I met the dyer behind Woolen Twine at Woolly Good Gathering earlier this year up in Edinburgh. Really lovely, and I'd always kind of had an eye on their stock ever since then, but where is it she's from? I want to say the Netherlands. This colourway is called Hayride, and it's on the Ovis sock base, which is 50% Cheviot and 50% Jacobs, and it is sourced and custom spun in the UK. It's got a really nice high twist to it, and let me tell you why I bought them all, because 200, 300 grams, I think, with insurance and postage was only £23. I think this one alone is like £23 without postage. So I very happily said, yes please, I'll have all of that yarn. Definitely going to be socks, probably going to be socks, and probably going to be socks. So more socks in my future. I never have an issue with buying sock yarn because I knit and crochet socks all the time, and they get used, like, unless I'm doing something very specific. I have got handmade socks on my feet, predominantly, so does Matthew. Every now and then when he goes into the office, he conforms and wears like stupid cotton socks, but mainly that man is in handmade socks. I mean, look at those colours together. They are so beautiful. It was just too much of a bargain to pass up, basically. So that was my incoming yarn. I don't think anything else has come in. I'm waiting for lots of yarn to arrive, but they are for designs. I've got a lot of design work now to get through between now and the end of the year, but it's stuff that I'm very excited for, so that's always helpful. And then that just brings me on to like what's been going on, life updates. In case you are thinking about and you're on the fence about going to see what's it called, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, go and see it. It was such a good film. We went and saw it last Sunday in Manchester, and you don't have to be a massive Bruce Springsteen fan to get it. Like, it's a good standalone film, I think. I actually happen to be a bit of a Springsteen fan ever since I was little. It was one of the cassettes that we used to have playing in the car, Born in the USA. And then when I started to develop my own music tastes, I really liked Bruce Springsteen, and I didn't really know that much about the background of the film. It's not like a big biopic. It actually just covers about 2 years of his life when he's recording the album Nebraska. And it's really interesting from a creative point of view. It's interesting to see how he made it and how he stuck to his guns on the way that he wanted that album to be released. And also one of my all-time favourite Bruce song is on that album, and it's Atlantic City. So it was such a good film, but like I say, you do not have to be a Springsteen fan to be able to go and enjoy it. And the man who plays the lead, some of you will know him from The Bear. We haven't watched The Bear yet, but it has just moved further up our to watch list because what's his name, Jeremy Allen White, does such a good job of being Bruce Springsteen. He's just amazing. There's a shot where they are in the studio and he is singing Born in the USA, and it is Jeremy Allen White singing it, but you would think it was Bruce Springsteen. It is just amazing the way that he does it, and it was such a good film. We love films in our household, and we will often go to the cinema. Sometimes it's a bit hit or miss, but this one was a total hit for me. So if you are looking for something to go and watch, something at cinema, I thoroughly recommend going and seeing Springsteen. It was very entertaining. It's quite sad, it's quite deep, but yeah. The other person that's in it is national treasure Stephen Graham, who just deserves to get all the work as far as I'm concerned, because he is phenomenal. You might know him from Adolescence and 1,000 Blows. He's so good. He plays Bruce's dad. So yeah, thoroughly recommend that. The other thing that I wanted to do, I was reminded by Catherine Crochets, hello, when I talked last time on the podcast about the Wintering book by Catherine May, Catherine Crochet remind me of an author called Cal Newport. So if you're into this idea of kind of slower working and just working to your own rhythm, then I've got two other book recommendations for you, and they're both by Cal Newport. One of them is called Deep Work and the other one is called Slow Productivity, and both of these books really also resonated with me and made me rethink what I do, how I do it, and how deeply I do it for in terms of work, but also personal life as well. So if you're in and looking for some new authors or something that hopefully would give you something back when you read it, I highly recommend those two books. I really enjoy reading or listening to business books and development books, and those two are ones that really stand out to me, so I'll put links for them down below. That also leads me on to just say I'm really loving the comments that are coming through from the comment section, and there seems to be, we're moving into like shared information, and it's really nice. Like if you tell me about something in the comments, I go and look it up and have a little look-see and what it is that you're talking about. I try to respond to all of the comments. Sometimes YouTube is a bit naughty and I'll see that there's a comment there and then I can't go back and find it. So if I haven't, feel free to raise a hand and say, "Oi, you haven't responded to me," because that's not my intention. It's just sometimes they actually disappear. I'm really loving the community that we've got going here. Sounds a bit loving. I don't care. I mean it. So yeah, thank you. Keep on sharing. Because I work alone. Like it's literally me all day long out in this office. Matthew works up in the house and we can see each other for 10 minutes at lunchtime or not at all, and I can be out here for 10 to 12 hours a day working away on my own. So your comments coming through on YouTube are like, oh, there are other people out there that are doing things, and that is just the nature of what I do as a designer. It's it can be quite a solitary job. So the YouTube comments are really nice, and it's lovely to know what you're up to. This isn't about me. Like, what are you up to? What are you working on? What yarns are you on? What yarn shows are you going to? Share your experiences. This is the whole point of community. So thank you as ever for being here and for commenting and for liking and for coming back every couple of weeks. Until 2 weeks' time, I am waving.